speaker is John Mastrototaro from Medtronic. He's the VP of Informatics there. He will outline for us what has been happening in the digitization of medical devices. Thank you.
All right, so it's a pleasure for me to be here today. First, I want to give you a little bit of introduction about Medtronic. We're over 85,000 employees now, so we're the largest pure-play medical device company in the world, operating in over 160 countries. Only 53,000 patents. I thought that was a lot until I just saw the Philip's presentation. Spending about $2 billion a year in R&D. And clearly we also work a lot with our communities around the world. So these are the chronic conditions that we're focused on, and we're a company that focuses on the management of chronic conditions. I'm not going to read the list, but you can see that we're pretty much looking all over the body with what we do today. And when we think about the universal healthcare needs, we really think about three things as an organization: improving clinical outcomes, expanding access of our therapies to patients globally around the world, and optimizing the costs and efficiencies of delivering therapies to people. And when we try to translate those universal healthcare needs into our strategy for how we're going to focus moving forward as the healthcare system is changing today, we have three pillars. One is around therapy innovation. This is probably our traditional approach about developing new devices and new solutions for helping people with chronic conditions. Oh, this was just me, no, okay. Is this better? The second is around globalization and trying to develop unique solutions to serve people around the world, regardless of what market they're in. And clearly there are different needs in healthcare in different geographies. And then the third is the one that's probably very closely related to this meeting today, which is economic value. And it's really looking at new solutions and new business models that will provide value-based healthcare. And the new norm in today's world is it's no longer going to be fee-for-service. So you put a device in someone, we get paid for that widget that's put in. You have a meeting with a patient as a physician, you get paid for that. Moving forward in the future, it's going to be a lot more about the value that's delivered, and you're going to get paid on the value delivered. So as a medical device provider, we have to ensure that the patients who are on our therapies are achieving cost-effective outcomes moving forward, which means we need to start to understand what's going on with our patients once they're implanted with a device, once they're on one of our therapies, and monitor them. And that's going to dovetail into remote monitoring and some of the things I'll talk about in a moment. So we believe that disease management, there's a number of opportunities to optimize healthcare in this area. Beyond just the medical device that people have and trying to collect the data out of the medical device over time as the patient has the therapy, there's a whole bunch of other sources of data that would be very important to understanding the health of the patient. Many of our patients have comorbidities. We want to understand what medications they're on. We'd love to understand the activity levels that they have. We'd like to understand more about the physician interactions. Ultimately, we want to collect all this data so that it provides us the ability to really understand the performance of the product when it's used in the patient, to understand the outcomes that the patient is achieving when they're on the therapy. Is it providing economic value? Because the regulators and the payers certainly want to understand more of that than ever before. And we want to be able to, as we monitor patients remotely, to be able to understand when their control starts to deviate out of a normal zone so that we can intervene remotely when they're at home, as opposed to their situation deteriorating to the point where they end up in a hospital, in a much more costly environment. And so this is one of the very important elements of what we're trying to do today, which is to move the healthcare delivery to the home, monitor patients at home, and be able to avoid very costly events to both the healthcare system as well as to the person themselves. And so a couple of years ago, we made an acquisition into disease management, and this is out of a Forbes magazine, what they published. This was a couple of years ago, right after we made the acquisition, and they said that we're recognizing how healthcare environment is changing. The world of providing a complex and costly widget, those days are not going to be sustainable long term, and we need to understand what we can do moving forward to help control healthcare costs and help improve outcomes for people living with disease. And so the company that we had acquired was called Cardiocom. They have a value proposition for heart failure patients. Historically, 25% of heart failure patients, when they leave the hospital, are back in the ER within 30 days. So they have a readmission rate within 30 days, 25% of them. It's very costly to the healthcare system. Hospitals are actually penalized for high readmission rates, so they have to pay if this occurs. And so Cardiocom was a company that said to the hospital system, look, here's what we'll do. You give us your patient when you're discharging them. We're going to outfit them with an electronic scale, electronic blood pressure cuff, an app on a tablet, and other information. And when that person's at home, we will manage that patient. And you pay us to keep them back out of the hospital. If they come back in, we'll give you the money back. If we keep them out, then you pay us. By doing this, what they were able to show, by collecting data, and one of the simple things is weight. So a lot of heart failure patients get fluid accumulation in the chest, puts pressure on the heart. You start to have problems with the heartbeat. So they can adjust the diuretic remotely by monitoring weight. You see the weight go up, something may be happening. Try to bring it back down and get them into control and keep them out of the hospital. So they've done some studies with some hospitals. You can see there's been great benefit in what they've done already. And the bottom line is that the patient ends up healthier and the total healthcare costs are reduced. And this is the goal of really what we're trying to do across the board in all of our areas. This just shows you a little bit, again, about how it's done. There's vital signs of the patient at home, comes into a data management system, algorithms running, you got a tech support service and triage, and then it'll only go to the physician if there's something that is seriously wrong. And the way I like to think about this in simple terms is if you look at healthcare at the bottom with home care, pharmacies, all the way up to being in the hospital, and you look at burden on the vertical axis, the bottom line is the more you move to the right, the more the burden is on the patient, obviously. There's much more costs of care, and these probably go in an exponential thing at the end when you're in the hospital, and a larger burden on the healthcare system. And so the goal of what we're trying to do today in digital health is try to push all of this work toward the home where it's less costly and less burdensome for all the stakeholders in the healthcare system, including, obviously, the most important one, the patient. So here's an example of one of the things that we're doing in diabetes. We heard a talk earlier about diabetes. We focus a lot on type 1, but we're also looking at type 2. Here is an insulin-using child with diabetes. We're trying to connect the insulin pump and their continuous blood sugar measurements through the day to the cloud, have an ability in the cloud to transmit the data to a loved one, maybe the mother, wherever she is, wherever the child is, be able to actually analyze that data personalized for that particular girl. And what impact does her exercise have on her blood sugars? What impact do the meals that she eats have on her blood sugars? And because we have all the pump information, what impact does insulin have on her blood sugars? What's her insulin sensitivity specifically? What happens to her at night when she's sleeping? We can look at all that data, and then we can actually model that person and provide them some input on modifications they could make to the therapy to improve her outcomes and keep her blood sugars more stable and avoid serious high and low glucose events. So the bottom line is when we look at a very general future vision, it's all about aggregating information that's relevant about a patient, bringing it into a system where we can analyze it and run algorithms on it to understand what's happening with the control, and then using that data to basically improve their outcomes by feeding back information when they need it, by making modifications to their therapy at the time that they're required. And there's value to all segments of the healthcare system. And one of the things that's really important in this whole area is that if you're going to develop these new solutions, you've got to figure out solutions that are going to benefit all the stakeholders that are involved with the care of a person and have a what's in it for them, for all of them. And so that's something that we're certainly focused on as well. So just to conclude, I think there's huge opportunities for remote monitoring and disease management to move it to the home. One of the things that's going to be very important in this whole area is demonstrating the economic value of providing these services and showing that it leads to better outcomes that basically show a cost structure that is value-based.
And if we can do all that and do it well, the ultimate goal and what we believe we're going to be able to achieve, as we did in the cardiocom example that I showed earlier, is improving patient well-being and at the same time reducing the overall cost of care. So thank you.